Welcome to Time Traveling Team, the weekly podcast where we review every story of Doctor Who right from the very beginning. I'm Paddy.
And I'm Tricia. In this week's episode, we join the Doctor and Leela as they arrive at a lighthouse and face the horror of Fang Rock. As usual, we'll be discussing the Doctor, companions, and villains, and giving our thoughts on the story as a whole.
We'd also love to hear your thoughts on this story, so in order to join the discussion, you can check us out at Time Teamp, that's TIMETAAMP, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or you can email us at timetravelingteam@teamproductions.com. But first, I shall regale you, as always, with the story.
Please do.
I shall. Part 1. Off the coast of England, on the island of Fang Rock during the early 20th century, one of the lighthouse keepers watches as a purple streak shoots across the sky and lands in the sea. The keeper, whose name is Vince, calls another keeper, Reuben, and tells him what happened. Reuben says that it might have been a meteor, and they are joined by the head keeper, Ben. The elder duo good-naturedly mock the younger keeper before Ben says that he is going on break, and for Vince to forget about it. Reuben joins Ben and they discuss the improvements in lighthouse technology throughout the years. Vince calls down and tells them to come up as there's a sudden fog after appearing. They go up to take a look, and they are amazed at how thick it is, and Vince says that it came from the direction of where he saw the purple light land. Ben tells Vince to go and sound the warning siren, and after he goes, Reuben expresses his own concerns about the mysterious nature of the fog. Just then, the light goes out, and Ben goes to check what happened. Meanwhile, the TARDIS lands close by, and Leela and the Doctor emerge, with the Doctor saying that they are not at their intended destination of Brighton. Leela again chides the Doctor for his lack of control of the TARDIS, but he's distracted when he sees the unlit lighthouse nearby. As they make their way towards it, Leela expresses her concerns that something seems wrong. Inside the lighthouse generator room, Ben looks to see what caused the fault, but can't find anything. Suddenly the light comes back on, and he makes his way back upstairs. After he leaves, the exit door opens, and a green glow starts to fill the room. He goes back and tells Vince what happened before going to enter the fault in the logbook. Vince goes back upstairs to join Reuben, but a few moments later the light goes out again. Ben goes down to investigate and is attacked by the green glowing entity. Up at the top of the lighthouse, Reuben again states that there is something unnatural with the fog, and Vince says that he will go down and check on Ben. Meanwhile, the Doctor and Leela enter the lighthouse, and the Doctor also wonders what is causing the fault with the machinery. They make their way upstairs and encounter Vince. The Doctor tells them that they got lost in the fog and landed on the far side of the island. Vince then brings them up to the kitchen and offers them some food, and the Doctor asks about the fault. Vince says that he doesn't know the workings of the generator and that is Ben's responsibility. The Doctor says that there was no sign of him downstairs, and Vince says that he must have gone outside. Leela refused this by saying that she would have heard him, causing the Doctor to become alarmed. He tells Vince that he will take a look at the generator and asks him to keep an eye on Leela. Vince offers to make her a cup of tea, but she said that she would prefer warmer clothes as the dress she is wearing is damp due to the fog. She starts to strip off, and Vince rushes to find her something to wear, shielding his eyes as he does so. Down in the generator room, the Doctor looks for Ben with no success. Suddenly the light comes back on, and the Doctor finds Ben's body. Vince and Leela come down, and Vince is shocked when the Doctor shows him Ben's body. He tells him that he died from a massive electric shock. The Doctor tells Vince to go tell Reuben, and after he leaves, Leela confirms with the Doctor that the death was not accidental. The Doctor says that whatever killed him is hiding somewhere or in or around the lighthouse. He then finds Ben's lantern, which appears to have been melted and bent out of shape by something. Up on the lamp deck, Vince tells Reuben what happened, and Reuben says that the Doctor and Leela could be spies. Vince is skeptical of this statement, but Reuben says that they arrived at the same time as the fog and the power drains. He says that he will go down to speak to them and promises that in the morning he'll send for a boat to take Ben's body away. Reuben finds the Doctor and Leela in the kitchen and tells the Doctor to stay away from the telegraph machine. Sensing hostility and wariness from the old keeper, the Doctor asks flat out if he thinks that they are responsible for Ben's death, and Reuben says he intends to send for the police to question them. He then picks up a shroud to cover Ben's body. After he leaves, Leela says that they need to hunt down whatever killed Ben, but he says it is too dangerous and instead says that he will go talk to Vince. However, after he leaves, Leela goes down to the generator room and sneaks out to search around the lighthouse. Up on the lamp deck, Vince tells the Doctor about the purple light he saw. Reuben comes up and interrupts the conversation, telling Vince to go down and get something to eat. As he goes down, he hears a strange crackling sound coming from the generator room and goes down to find Ben's body missing. He comes up to Reuben and tells him what happened, but Leela bursts in and asks if he saw anything come in. Suddenly Reuben tells him that the Doctor saw a light approaching and that his ship is going to hit the rocks nearby. He and Leela rush up to the lamp deck and fire flares before watching helplessly as the ship crashes into the rocks and begins to sink. Part 2. Reuben says that there may be survivors and tells Vince to come with him whilst telling the Doctor to stay behind and operate the warning siren. The Doctor delegates the task to Leela before following the others downstairs. Reuben tells the doctor to gather a length of rope from the generator room, but when he does so, the air crackles with electricity from an unknown source. Unable to investigate for the moment, the doctor makes a note of it and follows Reuben and Vince to look for survivors. A few moments later, the light turns out again, leading Reuben to complain about how they would never have had that problem if they were still using oil for light. The doctor silently comments that would not be the only problem that they would have avoided if they had continued using oil. Meanwhile, Leela looks down from the lamp deck and through the fog sees a large green, glowing jellyfish-like creature slithering over the rocks. A short while later, the doctor and the others return with a small group of survivors made up of the boat's owner, Lord Parmerdale, his secretary Adelaide, and his friend Colonel Skinsale. Reuben tells Vince to see after them whilst he goes back up to the lamp deck. Vince sees to Adelaide first, much to the annoyance of Parmerdale, who demands to be given dry clothes and brandy. Reuben arrives up top and overhears Leela talking to the doctor about what she saw. He tells him that they are being stalked by the fabled beast of Fang Rock. The doctor and Leela then go downstairs, and the doctor asks where is the other survivor, the coxswain Harker, and Parmerdale says that he stayed behind to secure the lifeboat they arrived in. Skinsale says that it was Harker that saved him before alluding to Parmerdale's poor seamanship being the reason that they crashed. Vince says that he needs to go stoke the boiler for the generator, and the doctor sends Leela with him. Adelaide comments on the unusual nature of Leela aiding in the boiler maintenance, and the doctor tells him of Ben's death. Parmerdale insists on getting to London in time for the financial markets opening, which is why they were sailing in such a rush, but the doctor says that there is no way off the island during the fog. In the generator room, Leela tells Vince she hears something outside and instructs the Yarvis Nunkeeper to get the doctor and bring him down. She takes up the coal shovel as someone comes in, dragging something, but the doctor arrives and tells her that it's all right. He says the man's name is Harker and that he is carrying what there remains of Ben's body, which he says that he found floating in the water nearby. The doctor tells him to go up and join the others in the kitchen, and Leela asks if it is the work of the beast that Reuben spoke of. The doctor says that the beast is just a local superstition, but he wants to do a post-mortem on the body. They hear Vince coming downstairs, and they hide the body to prevent alarming him further. Vince is adamant that Ben must have risen from the dead, believing the stories that Reuben had earlier told him about lost spirits who died unusually. However, the doctor tells him that Ben must have been stunned by the electricity, and when he woke up, he was confused and must have left the lighthouse and drowned. Vince accepts the explanation and apologizes for his attitude. After he leaves, Leela asks why the doctor lied, but he replies that he doesn't know what the truth is at the moment. Up in the kitchen, Parmerdale orders Harker to take them to the mainland after he's eaten, but the coxswain refuses, leading Skinsale to jokingly say that he is staging a mutiny. Parmerdale blames the lighthouse for their current predicament, but Skinsale and Harker say that even if it was working, they were still travelling too fast in the fog. The doctor comes up and tells Harker to get some rest before leaving with a lantern. Parmerdale comments on the doctor's mental faculties, and Adelaide voices her opinion on Leela and her looks, leading Skinsale to express an admiration for the Seventeen warrior. Skinsale then uses the speaking tube to call up to Reuben on the lamp deck to ask if there is a private room for Adelaide, and Reuben tells him that she can sleep in the bunkhouse. Vincent points out a lantern in the fog, and Reuben says that it must be the doctor and Leela. Downstairs, Skinsale returns from bringing Adelaide to the sleeping quarters and comments on Parmerdale's frustrations. Parmerdale says that he stands to lose the money he would gain using the secret information Skinsale gave him and threatens to blackmail him in recompense for the loss. Skinsale advises against it, as he is a military veteran of good standing and would sue him for everything that he has. Out in the fog, Leela shows the doctor where she saw the creature, and the doctor notes on his compass that there is an electromagnetic field in the area, which is strong enough to kill someone upon direct contact. They find some dead fish nearby, and Leela asks what it is. The doctor says that whatever it is, it's dangerous, and they'd better get back to the lighthouse. Unbeknownst to them, they are watched by the creature as they leave. They arrive back at the lighthouse, and the doctor says that the creature must be an alien in origin, and probably stole Ben's body to examine it. He then says that they are in serious danger as the creature will have learned all their weaknesses by now and could attack at any moment. Leela says that they must warn the others and prepare to defend the lighthouse, but the doctor warns her against telling them who they really are, unless they turn on them as well. Upstairs, Parmerdale finishes writing a note and wakes up Harker, ordering him to send a message on the radio telegraph so that he can still use the information from Skinsale in order to become rich. Harker refuses, saying that the crash was his fault, and lays the death of the crew at his feet before starting to strangle him. Skinsale is woken up by the sound of the fight and tries to break it up. The doctor arrives and helps Skinsale before telling them about the threat to the lighthouse. He tells them that no one is to leave, but Parmerdale treats his warning as superstitious nonsense. Reuben arrives and tells them about the beast, alluding to a previous calamity that befell the lighthouse 80 years earlier, resulting in the death of 2 keepers and the insanity of the surviving one. He then goes down to stoke the boiler, and after he leaves, Parmerdale continues his tirade about them being superstitious fools. Leela threatens to kill him if he doesn't listen to the doctor, but then stops, saying that it has gotten suddenly cold, like the time when Ben was attacked. Skinsale says that he doesn't feel anything, but the doctor tells him about Leela's heightened senses. Adelaide arrives and asks what's going on when suddenly the lights go dim. Then from the generator room, they hear Reuben's screams. Part 3. The doctor and Leela rush down to the generator room but see no sign of Reuben, but they notice the door to the outside open. Leela says the creature must have taken him and they go outside to investigate. Up in the kitchen, Adelaide starts to break down and Skinsale does his best to comfort her. Harker takes a lamp and heads downstairs, ignoring Parmadale's suggestion that they all stay together. Harker arrives in the generator room and goes outside looking for the doctor and Leela, but sees no sign of them. He goes back inside and sees Reuben emerge from the coal cellar, but he walks past him as if in a trance, telling Harker to leave him be. Reuben then makes his way upstairs as the lights come back on again. Skinsale steps outside when he hears him going up the stairs, but he also ignores him as he continues upstairs. Down in the generator room, the doctor and Leela return and Harker tells him that he saw Reuben. The doctor ignores him as he tries to factor in the size of the creature based on the residual charge it left behind after taking Ben's body, but he then realizes that he can just go ask Reuben, a fact Leela had been trying to make. The doctor tells Harker to try and barricade the door whilst they go upstairs to find Reuben. They stop by the kitchen and Skinsale says that Reuben went upstairs but didn't seem right. They continue upstairs followed by Parmadale. Skinsale, wary of Parmadale's intentions, follows on after him and tells Adelaide he'll be back soon. The doctor and Leela arrive at the crew quarters and find the door locked. The doctor calls out to Reuben, but he gets no response and he tells Leela that he is probably in a deep state of shock. He sends her down to tell Harker to keep the boiler pressure up so they can help keep the lighthouse operating until Reuben is better. Inside the room, Reuben begins to glow green. Up on the lamp deck, Parmadale talks to Vince and offers him £100 to send a message to London on the telegraph for him. Vince is reluctant to get involved in anything illegal, but eventually agrees. Unbeknownst to them, they are being listened to by Skinsale, who goes back downstairs when he hears the doctor approaching. Parmadale also steps outside to hide whilst the doctor talks to Vince. Vince starts to express his fears about the creature hunting them down and doubts their survival, but the doctor says that they outnumber it 8-1. At that moment, the creature is actually clinging to the underside of the walkway around the lamp deck. Parmadale notices the green glow coming from its body and it attacks him with its tentacles, electrocuting him. Down in the kitchen, Skinsale and Adelaide argue about Parmadale's intentions. Adelaide berates Skinsale for his perceived taking advantage of Parmadale's generosity and goes to tell her employer everything Skinsale has said. After she goes, Skinsale starts to examine the radio telegraph. Up on the lamp deck, the doctor tells Vince to stay working the emergency siren whilst Harker works on the boiler. They suddenly hear a thudding sound from the stairway and the doctor goes to investigate. After he goes, Vince calls out to Parmadale but gets no response. He then takes the money that Parmadale gave him and burns it. The doctor finds Leela trying to break into the crew quarters with a sledgehammer. Adelaide comes up and demands to be let up to the lamp deck to see if Parmadale is up there, but the doctor and Leela force her back down to the kitchen whilst they look in the room to check on Reuben. They see no sign of him and go back down to the kitchen as well. The doctor tells Leela to bring up Harker and then to go try and find Parmadale. The doctor then comes clean to Skinsale and Adelaide and says that they are being hunted by an alien. Adelaide mocks the doctor for his statements, but he ignores her and continues telling them that life does exist outside of Earth. Leela arrives with Harker and says that she couldn't find Parmadale, but just then Vince calls on the speaking tube and says that he thinks Parmadale must have fallen off the walkway. Adelaide screams, but Leela slaps her to quieten her, as the doctor says that he is uncertain whether or not they should go to look for his body. Skinsale says that they must, but then says the doctor is serious about the creature and agrees to do whatever he thinks is best. The doctor tells Leela to stay behind whilst he goes outside with Harker and Skinsale, unaware that Reuben is listening to them from further up the stairs. Adelaide says that her astrologer foretold disaster if they left for London, and Leela says that it is pointless to believe in magic, telling her that since travelling with the doctor, she prefers to believe in science. A short while later, the doctor and Skinsale arrive with Parmadale's body. At the same time, Harker seals off the doorway, but before he can join them, he is confronted by a smiling Reuben. Upstairs, Adelaide accuses Skinsale of murdering him, saying that he was followed him up to the lamp deck. Skinsale reveals the conversation he overheard between Parmadale and Vince, and the doctor asks if that was the reason why he sabotaged the telegraph, revealing the damaged workings. He tells Skinsale that by saving his own reputation, he has put the rest of them in danger. Skinsale continues to protest his innocence of the murder, and the doctor agrees, saying that Parmadale was electrocuted to death. Vince then calls down and informs them that the emergency siren has stopped working and the boiler pressure has dropped. The doctor realises that something must have happened to Harker, and they rush downstairs to find him dead. The doctor confirms to Leela that he was also electrocuted, and he goes to search the coal room, where he finds Reuben's body. He examines it and tells Leela that Reuben has been dead for hours. He then realises that the creature has taken Reuben's form, and that he has locked it inside with them. Part 4. Up on the lamp deck, Vince is confronted by the creature still pretending to be Reuben, and is electrocuted by him. Down in the generator room, the Doctor tries to figure out what the creature is, saying that being able to duplicate another life form takes millennia of evolution to achieve. Leela, mistaking his lecture about Time Lord physiology by comparison, says the Doctor should easily be able to defeat it. Leela suggests playing along with the deception to lull the creature into a false sense of security, but the Doctor says that it can easily kill them with just a touch. He then notices something near the generator and picks up a small metal device that is humming. He says that it is some sort of power relay for an interstellar distress beacon. He tells Leela to gather the other survivors and bring them up to the lamp deck, as it is the easiest place to defend. He then goes up to the crew quarters and starts searching the bunks for the signal relay for the distress beacon. He then hears footsteps approaching and he hides by hanging out of one of the windows just before Reuben comes in looking for him. Meanwhile, Leela goes up to the kitchen and tells Adelaide and Skinsale that the creature is locked in with them, causing Adelaide to faint. Skinsale helps her up and Leela says that they need to get up to the lamp deck, but they are confronted by Reuben. Adelaide tries to escape, but she is killed by Reuben. Leela tells Skinsale to run for it and throws her knife at Reuben, which goes right through him as he begins to glow green and turn incorporeal. They then run up the stairs and encounter the Doctor, who has found the signal device lodged in the wall outside of the crew quarters. He tells them to go upstairs and get Vince to help them prepare to defend the lamp deck, unaware that he is already dead. He then waits on the stairs and confronts Reuben as he approaches, calling him a Rutan. With the need for the facade gone, the Rutan returns to its original gelatinous tentacle form. Up on the lamp deck, Leela and Skinsale find Vince dead. They then turn their attention to the Doctor's instructions to gather all the powder from the signal flares. Back on the stairs, the Doctor asks the Rutan what he is doing on Earth, and it says that it is a scout. The Doctor states that the Rutans must be losing their ongoing war with the Sontarans and are now looking for strongholds in the outer fringes of the galaxy. The Rutan says that the Sontarans are the ones that will lose, ignoring the Doctor's statements that the Sontaran will destroy the planet once they notice the Rutan battle fleet approaching it. The Doctor then asks why he had to kill everyone in the lighthouse, and it says that it couldn't risk being discovered. The Doctor then says that he has sabotaged the signal device for the distress beacon, but the Rutan says that the signal was broadcasting long enough to be picked up by its mothership. The Doctor taunts the Rutan into following him upstairs, and once there, he takes one of the bombs that Leela and Skinsale prepared and throws it at the Rutan. The bomb explodes and severely wounds the Rutan, causing it to retreat. The Doctor then tells the others that the Rutans are weak to heat, but they will need something stronger than the bombs to kill it. Skinsale then shows him a Shurmurli, a rudimentary signal rocket that he found downstairs, and the Doctor tells him that they can load it with bits of metal to use to defend the staircase. He and Skinsale start to load it with whatever they can find in their pockets, but the Doctor says the real cause for concern is the approaching Rutan battle fleet. He then says if they can destroy the approaching mothership, it might convince the Rutans and the Sontarans that the Earth is too hostile to try and take over. He says that there is nothing on Earth capable of destroying the ship in orbit, but they might be able to do so when it cuts its shields as part of its landing sequence. The Doctor says that they would need a carbon oscillator, which he explains is a form of intense laser beam. Leela suggests that they use the light from the lighthouse, and the Doctor says that it could work, but it would need a piece of crystallized carbon to focus the beam. Skinsale asks if a diamond would do, saying that Palmerdale always carried a supply of them with him. They realise that they need to go down to the kitchen to reach the body, but they would have to get past the Rutan first. The three of them bring the Shurmurli to the top of the stairs. The Doctor tells Leela to stay behind and fire it if she sees the Rutan. Skinsale follows the Doctor downstairs and goes into the kitchen to search Palmerdale, whilst the Doctor watches out for the Rutan. Skinsale eventually finds the bag containing the diamonds, and the Doctor takes the best one and throws the rest away. Skinsale goes to retrieve them, but he is killed when the Rutan suddenly appears. The Doctor rushes up the stairs and tells Leela to prepare the cannon. She fires it just as the Doctor runs past, and the blast lethally wounds the Rutan. Then the Doctor turns off the lamp, and whilst Leela goes to check on the Rutan. It defiantly states that the mothership will destroy them, but Leela basks in her triumph and ignores his threats. She then goes back up to the Doctor, who points out the approaching mothership. He then rigs up the carbon oscillator and says that once he activates it, they would have less than 2 minutes to escape the lighthouse before it and the mothership are destroyed. They rush downstairs, but Leela stops momentarily to retrieve her knife. She and the Doctor then rush outside and take cover as the mothership explodes. A curious Leela looks out from cover and witnesses the explosion, which blinds her. She sadly tells the Doctor to kill her, as that is the fate of the old and the crippled of the Sevatim tribe. The Doctor says that the effects will soon go away and tells her to blink. He then notices that her eyes have changed colour from brown to blue as a result of the pigmentation dispersal caused by looking at the explosion. He then leads her back to the TARDIS, reciting the Ballad of Flannan Isle by Wilfred Gibson. A confused Leela follows him inside and the ship dematerializes. End of the story. So, that'll make you think twice when you look at a lighthouse again. Although I was watching kind of going, what would life be like in a modern lighthouse? Definitely not as exciting as that anyway, I'd say. But
It just reminded me of is it the Vodafone ad? Where you've got the young fella trying to like get reception.
yeah.
Like he lives in a lighthouse and he keeps running further and further. And it's only when he gets to the top he gets reception.
Yeah.
And it's his girlfriend or female friend
Yeah.
the base of the lighthouse being like,
Yeah.
do you want to come out for lunch or something? And she's like, oh fuck's sake, it's run all the way up to the top. That, and it reminds me of that Australian TV show from like the 90s.
Round the Twist.
Oh, what was it? Yes.
Yeah.
That.
Strange things happen when you're going around the twist. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a weird show. But great show at the same time.
I wanted to tell you more about this weird, great show.
Yes, do please.
Cool. So, the air date for the Horror of Fang Rock is the 3rd of September to the 24th of September in 1977. The writer is Terrance Dicks. This is story 4 of 6. I wrote since. That makes no sense. This is story 4 of 6 for Terrance. We previously saw his work in The War Games, Robot, and The Brain of Morbius. Ish. You know, that was a Robert Holmes contribution as well. Horror of Fang Rock was actually a late replacement. Terrance had originally submitted a script based on vampires. It was called The Vampire Mutations. But that was cancelled because people were afraid that it would detract from the BBC's adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula, which was due to be transmitted around the same time. So they were like, yeah, no, let's bin that. And that, a rewritten version of that was later used by Doctor Who in the 1980s. But this was a rewrite, sort of a replacement script for that. Obviously, he's Terrance, so he also wrote the novelization for the story, which is like a given for him.
I also, like, you know, it probably isn't your trivia, but I also seem to recall something like that, like Philip Hinchcliffe like mandated a story set in a lighthouse at some point in the season.
Probably, but Philip is gone by this point. Do you know, like he finished up last season. So it's possible that like that was like on like sort of Philip's sort of ideal list, and maybe it's something that Bob, you know, fired over or something.
It's actually one thing that I kind of found interesting in that book that you gave me, which is like the number of like scripts that are like under older producers that get based because they're there essentially on file, and if they're stuck for stories, like they kind of go right here, use this one.
Yeah, although apparently, there was like some idea that like this story was originally written for Sarah Jane, and Terrance said no, that this was a fresh script specifically for this. Like I said, he also wrote the novelization of the story. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And we'll see his work again in State of Decay and The Five Doctors. The director of the story is Paddy Russell. This is the final of 4 directing credits for Paddy. We previously saw her work in The Massacre, Invasion of the Dinosaurs, and Pyramids of Mars. So a couple of big hitters there. Paddy didn't particularly enjoy her experience working on this story. A couple of reasons for that. She much preferred Terrance's original script, and she didn't really think much of this sort of hastily written replacement. But she had to do the story. She was under contract. She had to do it. But also filming wasn't exactly the happiest experience for her, in large part due to Tom Baker. And him clashing with Louise was particularly challenging for her. And Paddy also claimed that Tom so infuriated the crew that at one point they tried to swing a pair of mole cranes at his head.
Jesus Christ.
Until she saw what they were doing and ordered them to stop. And there's a big long quote here that I got off of the TARDIS wiki from Paddy. So it's, Tom Baker was easy to deal with at first, but the part went to his head completely. By the time, obviously because she did Pyramids with him as well. By the time I did Horror of Fang Rock, he was desperately difficult to work with. His input got totally out of hand. His attitude to his fellow actors was extremely difficult. His attitude to his director was extremely difficult. And his attitude to the crew was extremely difficult. For instance, it was always everybody else's fault and never Tom's. His idea was to have the show to himself. He didn't want an assistant, and he made their lives hell. Louise Jameson went through hell on that show, and that lady is a very good actress. Fortunately, she's very tough, and she got a lot of support from everyone else. I found her excellent to work with, but Tom hardly spoke to her, and when he did, it was usually something nasty. That's probably the longest quote we've seen Like we've heard mention of, oh, they didn't get along. Tom was very difficult to work with. I think that's the longest sort of put down of Tom at this time on the show that we've seen from a director who worked with him before. You know, so she has something to compare him against, like Tom and Pyramids of Mars, which is only 2 seasons ago, well, 2 and a bit, versus this. You know, she can really see the evolution over time. She also didn't like the fact that they were filming at BBC's Birmingham studios because there was a scheduling conflict at Television Centre where they do all of their filming. And she said the facilities weren't up to scratch. Like, it was a really poor shoot. And so she decided not to direct for the show ever again.
Which is a shame because she's a really good director.
She really is. Like I said, I wasn't a big fan of The Massacre story-wise. I didn't think it was a great Doctor Who story. But on its own, she did some amazing stuff with that.
Yeah, like...
And, like, obviously, she directed Bill in that amazing monologue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Invasion, I mean, what she did with that story was brilliant. Pyramids, obviously, a fantastic story. So I'm actually kind of sad that we're not going to see her directing work again.
Yeah.
Because she's had some really strong stories. More on this story, though. So this story had the working titles of The Rocks of Doom, or just Rocks of Doom, The Monster of Fang Rock, and The Beast of Fang Rock. You kind of refer to it there in your summary, but it was inspired by Wilfred Gibson's 1912 poem Flannan Isle, which was in turn based upon true events that occurred in 1900 when a supply ship discovered that the crew of a lighthouse on Flannan Isles in the Outer Hebrides had vanished without a trace. Terence also drew on Ray Bradbury's 1951 short story The Foghorn, about an aquatic dinosaur which has survived the ocean's depths, was attracted by a call of a lighthouse's foghorn. In the DVD commentary, Terence said that he wasn't happy with Tom Baker's delivery of the line, "dead with honour," when he's telling Leela about Skinsail's fate. And in the episode, and it sort of makes more sense when you read it, but in the episode, Tom says, "dead with honour." All one thing, no pause, no punctuation. In the novelization, Terence writes it as "dead, full stop, with honour," to emphasise that he was dead and that the "with honour" was kind of a afterthought because Skinsail didn't really... Did he really die with honour? We may get to that like in our conversation. But that was the Doctor trying to give him some honour in death, but that it took a second to do that. Which, given what Paddy was saying around, you know, Tom's inputs and stuff, like that's a key reaction, you know, and the placement of a full stop, the placement of a pause is so different from what the writer intends versus what the actor
or like,
delivers.
Absolutely. Like, I actually just a complete fucking segue here, but I recently watched the thing there where it was like Patrick Stewart was just doing an interview years ago, and he was talking about, you know, like how he's one of the later day Shakespearean actors along with Ian McKellen and Derek Jacobi. And he said, like, the most important thing I ever learned from Ian McKellen is if you're ever doing Macbeth, it's like when you're doing that big soliloquy, it's like put the emphasis on "and," you know, it's like, you know, "and tomorrow," and tomorrow. And I was like, you see a lot of stuff where like actors they'll read a script and they'll put the emphasis on one word or one sentence, which completely changes the context of what's being said.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of a cool actor's insight into stuff.
It's interesting when you have the writer sort of saying that wasn't what I intended with that. The pigment dispersal scene at the end of the story, we discussed this the other week. Basically, Louise Jameson didn't want to wear those contact lenses anymore. Thankfully for Louise, they did film Invisible Enemy before this, which is next week's story. So she actually did have a break from wearing them before she put them back in for this story, and now she's not going to have to wear them ever again, which is good. The scene where Leela slaps Adelaide to stop her from screaming. Apparently Louise did slap that actress quite hard at the actress's insistence. So Annette Willett, who played Adelaide, basically told her not to hold anything back when doing the slap, and apparently Louise went for it. Which I don't know. I think, I mean, you always hear about that with people like sort of like trying to play it tough, being like, "Oh, don't pull your punch" or whatever. I'm like, that's never a good idea. You're gonna end up on the floor, and like, particularly in an acting situation, you're losing control of the scene, I think.
Sure. There's the great story of like Viggo Mortensen, like in doing fucking Lord of the Rings, when he himself and the stunt crew had this agreement where it's like, like, yeah, no, we can kind of like just throw each other digs every so and again. But one of the lead Uruks was so pissed off and like just annoyed from his makeup procedure that he actually, when he headbutts Viggo Mortensen, he actually knocks one of his teeth out.
Well, it's actually he chipped part of his front tooth off.
Was it the front tooth off? I thought it was like the entire tooth comes out. Yeah.
No, he chips off part because they're I was actually watching this the other day actually. In the behind the scenes interview, he sat there with like the sort of like, I'd say lower third of his tooth.
Yeah.
Missing, and apparently like he picked it up and he's like, "Oh, someone get some super glue and we'll just glue it back in and keep going." And they were like, "No, Vika, we're going to take you to a dentist." But actually, funnily enough, when talking, completely sidetracking, only because I'm watching Rings of Power at the moment, but when talking about the scene where like he smacks away the
helmet,
the dagger.
Oh yeah, sorry, the dagger.
That was actually coming for his face.
Yeah.
And when he broke his toe, Viggo Mortensen actually didn't like talking about it. And in the interviews, he's like, yeah, that happened. But, like for the stunt guys, this thing happens to them every day. You're only talking about it because I'm an actor and not a stuntman. Which it was actually it's actually kind of sweet that he's like, please don't make a big deal of the fact that like I got hurt. These guys put their bodies on the line every day to do this job. You're not talking about all the things that happened to them. So don't bother talking about what happened to me, which I think is actually very sweet. I love actors who care about their, particularly stunt people, in that way. I think it's very sweet.
Himself and Keanu Reeves are very big into like giving compliments and props and to the stunt teams that they work with in the movies that they do.
Yeah. Okay, that was a bit of a sidetrack into Lord of the Rings and Rings of Power.
Fuck it, we always sidetrack into shit.
So while in the show they never explicitly state what year the story is set in, it's fairly easy to sort of infer what it is, because when they're talking about the beast being seen 80 years ago, Vince is like, oh, back in the 20s. So obviously they're only talking about the introduction of electricity, so they're hardly mean the 1920s, therefore that was in the 1820s. So this is around turn of the century, early 1900s. We talked a while ago about Tom and Louise, and we've talked about it a lot. And particularly, I've talked about the fact that like all this drama doesn't show on screen, which is great, and kind of a weird credit to them both. But according to on the DVD, Louise does say that there was a scene in part 3 that was crucial to her and Tom having a smoother working relationship. And it's when the Doctor carries in Palmerdale's body. And apparently Tom consistently came in ahead of his cue, thereby upstaging Louise.
Yeah.
So Louise was on her cue in her part of the scene, and Tom kept coming in early. And so she kept insisting that they retake it again and again, because this was not what they had rehearsed. Do it again. And finally, after 3 successive retakes, after doing it 4 times, he finally came in at the proper rehearsed time. And apparently that won his respect. And from that point on, she said that their working relationship was a lot smoother. And part of me is like, that's nice. He's a nice, smooth working relationship. After that, hopefully, we'll see what next week's story brings, if that's actually true. But like, really? That was the turning point?
Yeah.
Him repeatedly being a dick and you not putting up with that anymore was the turning point? That...
Yeah, like it's
not exactly the happiest story, Louise.
It's not, no. It's happy for her, like, but in terms of the general fucking flow of the show, it's like, dude, come on.
Yeah. One of the things that I certainly have it in my notes, but I'm going to call it out here as well, because I don't know if you have it in your notes, and you'll be commenting before me today, so I do want to include it here in case you have it, is it's never expressly explained in the show why Vince burns the money.
Was reading that kind of going, he's a man of... No, wait, no. He doesn't want to be implicated.
Basically, yeah, he was concerned that he might be accused of murdering Palmerdale should he be found to have the money.
Yeah.
So, he was afraid they thought that he tried to rob him or something like that for the money. Not necessarily that he would be involved in, whatever Palmerdale was doing in terms of trying to radio London and whatever. That wasn't. It was like more so like he was concerned about, being accused of murdering him in order to get money.
I think we'll find out his name now in a minute, but I think the guy who played Vince actually does a good enough job of presenting the character to us. I thought that was kind of a fairly obvious reason why he was burning it.
Yeah, I did too, though I found it interesting there was no mention of it.
Yeah.
Do you know? The money never gets mentioned ever again. Do you know? Like, or you don't have Skinsale being like, oh, but I saw him giving you money.
Yeah.
There's nothing of that. In the novelization, Terence clarifies that that's why. Again, we see Leela in something other than her famous leather outfit. However, it's decided to return her to her original costume after this, so we will be seeing Leather Leela again next week. And this marks the last time, potentially, put an asterisk and stuff like that, the Doctor travels with only a single companion until the Caves of Androzani in 1984. However, asterisk, some people don't see the introduction of Nissa in The Keeper of the Traken as a carryover. They think that she didn't actually start being companion until the following episode, in which case, until The Keeper of the Traken. I was trying to figure it out because like K9 gets introduced next week. Spoilers. K9 gets introduced next week. I was like, does K9 stay really until the very end? I was like, well, yeah, he does send versions of K9 off with people.
Yeah, because like there's no, we're not going to spoil stuff, but there's at least the most current thing was K9 Mark IV, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's variations of K9.
Yeah. So the K9 that we see in the Sarah Jane Adventures, for example, is K9 Mark IV. So, this was the final televised story in which every character other than the Doctor and his companion is killed, up until the Doctor's wife in 2011. In early drafts, actually Adelaide and Skinsale were meant to survive. However, they wanted to make it resonate with the poem, so they changed it to make it that no one survived. The idea being that, the following day, a ship rocks up and sees that the entire place is, everyone's dead. There's a really interesting story on the TARDIS wiki. You can probably find it elsewhere as well. I'm not going to go into all the detail, but I do strongly encourage you to go to TARDIS wiki and look it up. Around a rebroadcast of this story on PBS in Chicago in 1987, where the station was a target of a bizarre prank in which certain individuals, who to this day they don't know who they were, managed to hijack the broadcast feed. For nearly 90 seconds, they aired footage of two individuals wearing a Max Headroom mask, spouting gibberish, and advertising catchphrases, including ones that were associated with Max Headroom and Coca-Cola, humming music, engaging in mildly risque behaviour, sort of calling people nerds and stuff like this. And they never found out who did it. It happened on two broadcasts. This, and then there was another broadcast, I think of a football game or something, where they did the same thing. And like they describe in detail on the TARDIS wiki like what was in this video, and it's so fucking random. Like, I'm not going to go into all of it. I encourage you to look it up. But like, that's so fucking weird.
See, I had heard about this. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I thought that it was actually fucking someone just threw on 90 seconds of the Max Headroom TV show.
No.
Yeah.
This was a prank. It was like if you read down through it, like on the TARDIS wiki, and I do recommend that you do. If you read down through it in the TARDIS wiki, it sort of describes sort of scene by scene, I suppose, what it is. And no one ever fucking figured it out. It's like literally there's 90 seconds of the show that these guys hacked it, and no one ever figured out, like, did they particularly target Doctor Who? Because like there was some mention of nerds and stuff in their rhetoric, or was it just that they did it for a laugh and this just happened to be the transmission that they managed to hijack? But yeah, I never heard about this, and I was like, that's so fucking weird. But let's go on to our cast, right? So as Reuben and the voice of the Rutan, we have Colin Douglas. This is the second and final appearance for Colin. We previously saw him as Donald Bruce in The Enemy of the World, so that was a couple of years ago in Showtime.
And I remember at the time saying that it was unusual that he was coming back again for this, because he didn't really speak highly of Doctor Who when he was cast the first time round.
Yeah, so it's interesting that maybe, obviously having watched Doctor Who maybe more in the intervening years, it's been many years since he was on it, so
yeah,
it is interesting. Vince is played by John Abbott. Only Doctor Who acting credit for John. His non-Who credits include Z-Cars, Angels, Caput Who, and Trial and Retribution. John recalled that Paddy Russell apparently cast him as Vince after seeing him play Snoopy in a play in the Edinburgh Fringe. Which I just think is lovely, because now I can't think of Vince without thinking of Snoopy. I'm like, okay, that's adorable. Paul Mordale is played by Sean Caffrey, only Doctor Who acting credit for Sean. His non-Who credits include The Viking Queen, No Hiding Place, Coronation Street, Z-Cars Again, The Human Factor, and The Bill. Sean passed away in 2013. Skinsale is played by Alan Rowe. This is appearance 3 of 4 on Doctor Who for Alan. We previously saw him in The Moon Base, and again in The Time Warrior, where he was Edward of Wessex. I don't think we talked about him at the time, so I will continue. We'll see him again in Full Circle. And then his non-Who credits include Hail Caesar, The Diary of Samuel Pepys, An Age of Kings, Forever Green, The Manageress, and Crown Court. Alan passed away in 2000. Harker is played by Rio Fanning, only Doctor Who acting credit for Rio. His non-Who credits include Relic Hunter, The Avengers, EastEnders, All Creatures Great and Small, The Aeneid Line, and Z-Cars Again. A lot of Z-Cars this week. Rio passed away in 2018. As Adelaide, we have Annette Willett. This is our only Doctor Who acting credit, and actually she only has 4 acting credits to her name ever. Or 5 rather, including this one. So her others are Scott On, Upstairs Downstairs, Thriller, and Emmerdale. Now I'm going to talk about the guy who played Ben as well, because this is a very small cast of characters, and even though we won't be discussing Ben as a character, it feels mean to leave his actor out. So Ben is played by Ralph Watson. This is the final of 4 stories for Ralph. We previously saw/heard him in The Underwater Menace. He was in The Web of Fear. He was Captain Knight in The Web of Fear. And he was in The Monster of Peladon, where he played Etis. Ralph passed away last year in June of 2021.
He's got a very George Harrison late era Beatles vibe about him, like in this one. So it's like Etis, was that that was the miner that basically went fucking insane and tried to blow up the Citadel. I feel kind of fucking cheated, because he's a really good actor when it comes to Doctor Who. Like Knight was done well. Etis we thought was done well as well. So like I suppose it's a shame that he's final one. He's like reduced to like, Act 1 dead body.
Yeah, I was like, when I was going through the list of characters, I was like, cool, I was sort of like opening new tabs for each of the actors. Like, cool. And I was like, fuck, there's only one left. I can't fucking leave him off, for fuck's sake.
I actually watched. I remember my very first memory of Horror of Fang Rock was part 4, and it's the sequence where the Rutan is chasing Skinsale and the Doctor. And I was up above my cousin's place. I think I had actually watched a Matt Smith episode, and then I just turned on UK TV Gold, and it was like, oh look, it's classic Doctor Who. So And I watched the end of that episode and I kind of fell asleep then, I think.
You have such oddly specific memories. I honestly don't know how your brain works.
Oh,
like you messaged me last night, being like, "Oh, I just saw like the best scene ever with Leela," and I literally just fucking watched it. I was like, "What the fuck's it about?" My brain is blanked on everything I just watched.
Oh no!
Which is why you have to do my remembering for me.
Yes.
So we have done the story summary. Thank you, Paddington. We have done the trivia. Thank you, Trish. And now it's on to our characters. So we have the Doctor, played by the illustrious Tom Baker himself. For companions, I'll be honest, I just put Leela and I put everyone else as a prominent character.
Yeah, no, the same. Well, obviously, the Rutan.
So we have the companion of Leela, and then we have the prominent characters of Reuben, Vince, Palmerdale, Skinsale, Harker, and Adelaide. We're not talking about Ben. Nice guy, died in like 5 minutes. And lastly, as the villain, we have the Rutan itself. So, Paddy, as is now tradition, took us only like
200 years to start
show to come to a tradition. But I will hand to you first. Thoughts on the Doctor in Horror of Fang Rock, please?
There is something that I think Tom's Doctor does better than any of the Doctors that we've seen so far. All right, is that he treats the rank and file characters with a degree of respect that their superiors don't. And he's very good about treating them as, even when he's giving them orders, he's kind of treating them, or he makes it feel like he's treating them as equals. Like, I think that's definitely shown here in his relationship with Vince and Harker. Like Harker more so than I would think Vince, because like Vince is still like the younger, he's the young junior keeper, whereas like Harker is a seasoned sailor. But like he shows such great reverence and like trust in Harker. I think it's great. Tom does it very, very well. And like I can't remember any of the other guys doing it as well as he would do it.
No, I think like John had good relationships with specific members of the rank and file. He got on well with Yates. He got on well with Benton. But like if we think about what's his face in the Demons, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Osgood.
He wasn't trained them very well. Osgood. Like, and I know like Benton and Yates aren't technically rank and file. Like, do you know what I mean?
But the rank and file of the week, I suppose, would be the kind of the incidental characters that just crop up for the story. But this is I really enjoyed him in this story. Like, there's some really good science investigation going on, because you can see him there trying to figure out what it is. He's constantly trying to figure out what it is that he's fighting, and he's factoring in the size of the creature to leave a residual charge. So like, and then he's kind of figuring out is that it or whatever. But of course, because he's so caught up in his own investigations, we do get some beautiful like comedic moments where it's like Leela's trying to like explain stuff to him and he's just off in his own little world. But I also like as well, like when he brings the wider universe to the story. So like here, like we've talked before about the Sontarans, and we know that they're engaged in a war with the Rutans. But here, he actually kind of makes it feel like it's, from an outsider's perspective, it's two fucking races that are tearing up sections of the galaxy in this. And we like, again, we never find out why the war started. Why is it going on as long as it is? But it's just like that these two packs of fucking pricks are just like constantly going at it. And I like that. I really like that in this story. My favorite Leela moment actually comes more so from the Doctor than it does Leela herself. But it's when he's on about the carbon oscillator, and he said like it's a laser. Like Skin said, it's like, what's that? And Leela's like, oh, it's like a really intense light. And he's like, yeah, but we don't have anything here. And then she suggests using the lamp from the lighthouse, and he's like, you're suggesting that we use this? And he just goes, Leela, that's a beautiful notion. I just a big smile on her face when he says it. I love it. Yeah, it's an incredibly nice moment,
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, I think for me, like, that sort of highlights again this sort of juxtaposition between what we're hearing in the background
mhm.
between these two actors versus what we're seeing on screen with their characters.
Yeah.
It's just such this sort of mirror image almost.
Yeah, it's like this weird Jekyll and
Um,
Hyde like relationship that they have.
yeah, and like, I can only imagine sort of being in that environment and sort of it feeling really schizophrenic.
Mm. But it goes to the level of, I suppose, like on camera professionalism between the two of them, and also shows that their acting skills, you know.
Mm.
But yeah, no, I thought it was like, as I said, it was a good showing for the Doctor, and a lot of stuff that like I really like about him in it, you know.
Mm. Yeah, I really like the Doctor in this one. Particularly, you mentioned, the lovely moment he had with Leela
Mm.
there, and to be honest, there's actually a few lovely moments
There
he has.
is,
That's why I
there
wasn't
is.
quite sure which one you meant when you messaged me. But for me, it's just this overall trust he shows in her.
Mm.
Even when he's correcting her on something, like when she was beating down the door to Ruben's
Yeah.
room, he stops her, but he doesn't. There's no excessive criticism or malice. It's
Mm.
purely, no, hold on, wait. It's getting to the point where now it's just education.
Mm.
It's not like, I said no more Janus thorns or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that,
Mm.
which I think is really good. I think he works really well with the other characters as well. Like you
Mm.
said, you mentioned him and Vince and him and Harker.
Mm.
I think particularly with Harker, like he knows nothing about Harker, except the first thing he hears about is that while the rich people, immediately left for the White House, that Harker was staying behind to see if anyone else
Mm.
survived, to take care of the ship. Like, he clearly he took note of Harker straight away
Mm.
and immediately trusted him.
Mm.
Immediately, Harker, I need to do this, and there's no um, hesitation or anything with it. Do you know? And that goes both ways
Mm.
because Harker is the same way with the Doctor.
Mm.
Do you know? Like I said, with Vince, it's a little bit different because Vince is like the junior keeper of the lighthouse,
Mm.
but the Doctor still listens to him. Do you know? And still has a good connection with him. It's
Mm.
just maybe not as good as Harker. And like I said, the Leela relationship is just really, really solid here.
There's actually another moment that I like. Not, as I said, not as much as the beautiful notion one, but it's
Mm.
where Leela says it's gotten cold again, and Skinsale's like, I don't really feel anything, and like the Doctor like is like, her senses are something that you basically, you just go like, she knows what she's talking about.
Yeah, and I was going to talk about that when we talk about Leela, but I love how in that scene the Doctor doesn't discount it
Mm-hmm.
anymore. Because remember, like back in Robots of Death, he's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Yeah.
Whereas here, he's like, "No, she just has very advanced senses,
Mm-hmm.
so shut the fuck up."
Yeah.
Which is great. The only negative I have here, and it's a small one, is the tone at the end.
Mm.
And not even at the very end, but like when he makes it back up the stairs, like he says, like, that Skinsale, dead with honor. Literally 2 seconds later, the two of them are laughing. And I'm like,
Mm.
that was a bit fucking much. Like, you are in a lighthouse full of dead people. And whereas, like, maybe it's because this Doctor is younger and whatever, but like, if you imagine in modern Doctor Who,
Mm.
the reaction the Doctor has when everyone but him and the companions in the story dies.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's a sign this Doctor's still very young, and still sees it as an adventure rather than take it on board personally.
Because like there's gallows humor, and then there's just outright being a bit of a fucking insensitive prick.
Yeah.
Because like we've talked about times where he's used gallows humor, and it's very fitting. Whereas
Mm.
here it's like, no, like whatever you want to say about, the waste of oxygen that are the Tux and Ballground crew in this particular story. Like guys like Vince, Parker, even Ruben, like
Mm.
this wasn't what they were fucking expecting on this evening,
And was it even Skinsale at the end? Like, I get, like, and we'll talk about it in a second,
Mm.
but like, he was like, you need diamonds.
Yeah.
I can get you diamonds. Do you know what I mean? Like, and he did face it head on. Do you know? Yeah, that was the one. If I was searching for a criticism, that was the one criticism I have, because again, maybe in other stories we'd see him laugh and then get serious.
Mm-hmm.
But here, we don't get the serious follow-up. It's like they laugh and then they're making the ray, and then at the end of the story he's citing the poem.
Mm-hmm.
But like, where's the, it's a lament for the dead
Mm-hmm.
type thing. It's like, that's a bit sussy, but
Yes.
okay.
It's sussy.
Anything else on the Doctor?
No. Well, I suppose one last little bit. The fleeing the lighthouse sequence where, like, Leela, like, stops to get her knife and he's continually calling her down. And then he runs back in, but she runs past and his momentum carries him into the generator. So he has to rebound off that and go out after her again. That felt kind of reminiscent of some of the stuff that he might have done with Liz, with Sarah Jane. So it's nice that he's still doing that with someone that at the time he's not particularly on par with.
Yeah. And again, given their background relationship, we have to wonder like how much of this is in the script, how much of it is in the directing, how much of it is just, acting and them sort of being like, forget what's between you and me, what will our characters do? It does make you wonder how much of it is in each
I think that sequence, like, it probably was a case of where, like, the Doctor would have stood in the doorway and called her on. But I think the, yo-yoing back and forth, I think that's like an on-the-spot ad-lib by the two of them.
Speaking of the two of them, we have his other half in this story, Leela. So, thoughts on Leela, Paddington?
So, we've talked before about Turnsticks and his writing of certain female characters. And while he may not be great with, modern feminists, he is very good at writing badass warrior women.
I would agree. I was surprised.
Yeah.
I was concerned about how Terence was going to write this, and I was pleasantly surprised.
Now, slight exception to one or two bits of dialogue from Leela. Like the do as the Doctor says or I'll cut out your heart, and which, like, prompts a smile from the Doctor. It's a bit much. But I get where it's coming from. But Leela is given, again, so much agency in this one. It's great. Like, she's not in such a small, confined setting where it is kind of hard for other characters to expand the story by themselves because literally they're in a fucking 30-foot tall cylinder. Leela does an awful lot of actually progressing the story here and taking charge at points, which is great. Like, it's just fucking, like, Chris Boucher or Booker, whatever we want to call him, Bob Holmes and Terrence Sticks, they've all done this character justice. Like, they've written it in such a way that Louise is able to give this masterful performance for someone that is quite possibly one of the strongest consistent characters that we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And it's like here as well, like, we kind of get the meeting of, I won't say like it's like a kind of a tipping point for Leela, but it's definitely somewhere where we're seeing a combination of the savage and the novice scientist that she's becoming. Because like, it's obviously like there's the savage thing of, the threats that she makes, or even her hunting abilities, or even some of the things that she kind of states. Whereas with the novice scientist, we're talking about like her recommending using the lamp to amplify the laser beam, because she's paid attention to what the Doctor has said, and she's now probably putting it into ways that she, as a 17 warrior, could utilize. She's still taking that information on board and putting it into a context that she can understand, which is great. But I like her interaction with Vince because it's very sweet. Like her, like, kind of stripping down. He's like, oh, like, I really shouldn't be looking at this. But I think she doesn't really see the harm in it. Also, like, she's not afraid to, like, throw someone a slap if it's needed to, like, bring down the tension. And I know that Leela didn't hear the stuff that was being said about her by this one, but it's like she kind of deserved that one from Leela. No, I think, we're consistently solid here with Leela again.
Yeah, I'd agree. Like, this is another great outing for her, and like, I had issues with last week's story and whatever, But for Leela, this is 4 for 4. So I think her top stories is going to be really, really difficult. If these first 4 are anything to go by.
Like even if it's downhill from here on in, which I can't remember fully, it'll be very hard to figure out which is the one that gets knocked.
Yeah, like even if you just had to, like even if we had to do a a Liz Shaw on it, and we only had these 4, I've no clue how I'd rank them. Do you know what I mean? It's amazing. I do love how, because we mentioned it in her first story, and it's come up in every story since, and I love it. The fact that this thing that they were originally going to do with her, where she has this sort of precognition or whatever, but they changed this danger sense. I like how they've kept it, because it's a very easy thing, particularly in a show like Doctor Who, that could get dropped off. You know, they mentioned it in the first story, they mentioned it in the second story, which is the same person wrote both. So okay, he kept over his thing. But we're in a new season now. It would have been perfectly fine and perfectly understandable for them just to not mention that ever again. You know, and just have it be, bog standard female companion or whatever. But I like how they keep bringing it in. And like I said, I love how the Doctor isn't discounting it anymore. And he actually reiterates the importance of it. You know, you sort of get that sense of, it sort of reminds me a little bit of Planet of Evil, when Sarah Jane was the one who was only ever seemed to be able to sense the antimatter monster. And eventually the Doctor started taking note of it and sort of realizing, okay, this is something to pay attention to. Which again, with Tom's Doctor, could very easily be something he just ignored. So I'm really glad that they're keeping that about her, because it gives her something, like she's not just the savage. And I took issue with them repeatedly referring to her that. I think it was last week I mentioned it. I don't like the fact that they keep referring to her as that. But I like here, they play it for a joke. She says, I'm savage. And then the Doc's like, come along, savage.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That it's now a joke between the two of them. It's not derogatory towards her in any way.
No.
Which I like. Now, one thing I will say is, Leela, did the Doctor not tell you it's bad form to strip down in front of innocent young men without warning? Though, in fairness, okay, her seaside outfit was very sweet. She looked way better in Bedden's clothes.
Yes.
Like, I think, actually, possibly even including the leather, I think that was my favourite Leela outfit.
Because it's like,
in terms of to look at her.
Yeah, like we talk about this, like, from time to time, or like ourselves, like, as we do in our general conversations. I think it's classy, sexy.
Yeah. I like it. It suits Leela very well. It suits Louise very well, I think. What I love about Louise, what I love about Leela here in this story, though, is how throughout the entire story she just gets stuck in. She's willing and able to fight. She's willing and able to investigate, or just to shovel coal. No one asks her to shovel coal, but she noticed that they were shoveling coal, and that was an important function of this lighthouse. So while the Doctor's waffling on, she's shoveling coal because there's no one else to do it. And I love that she's like, yeah, cool, I'll do this now. This needs doing. I'm here, I'm strong, I'll do it. Which is great. And whatever is needed and without prompting, which is the best part. She goes off, she has her own investigation, she comes back. She sees... the
Rutan?
No, she sees fucking, I forgot her name, Harker, using the big mallet. And she's like, I can use that. I'm going to take this. I'll be back later. And she just goes off. She doesn't ask anyone's permission. She's just fucking wailing on that door. And so being like, Ruben, I can fucking see you.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that, like, it's actually, ironically, for the character that, like, we sort of commented, like, was she just brought in as the something to look at character? Like you said, she's had the most consistent characterization. And I think subtle, natural development. Like I was like, Sarah Jane developed as well, but Sarah Jane's development was kind of backwards in some senses. going from being really independent to really childlike. Here we have someone going from being really superstitious and whatever, it's like you said, believing in science while not losing herself.
No.
Like she could very easily have become, like Victoria, just following along after the Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know? But she said, no, okay, he's doing that thing, I'm going to do this thing. Again, if I'm like searching for a negative for Leela here, her reaction to being blinded was a bit much. That realization and her reaction to it needed some room to breathe. It was literally, I'm holding my face, I can't see, kill me, all in the same fucking motion. And if you compare it to, I don't mean to continue to compare against Sarah, but we often compare companions. You compare against Sarah in Morbius, where she runs after the Doctor, like holding the Doctor's hand for ages. It's only when she sits down later she comments about being blind, and the Doctor looks at her eyes. The scene is given room to breathe. Now it becomes a further plot point in that story, and they only have like 30 seconds left in this one. But I would have liked it just to have a little bit of extra room to breathe before she said, "Kill me."
Yeah.
Do you know, rather than "I can't see, kill me, I'm broken." I would have rather just a little bit of extra time on that to breathe.
Jesus Christ, it's Vicious in the 17 tribe. He's got a really bad leg, but he's our most experienced hunter. He could teach all the generations to come. It's like, nah, fuck it,
Nah,
get
fuck
rid of him.
It's like, oh my god, I can't walk, kill him. No, but like, I just slept funny. I just slept funny. And only because I think that, Leela, the character, I also think Louise, the actress, could have done a lot with like an extra 30 seconds on that scene. I think she could have done a lot with it, and it wouldn't have been as funny as it turned out being.
But as you say, like, there's a really good plot element there, which is that, like, with her heightened senses, like having her be blind and having that play into things, that would have been kind of cool.
Yeah, like I would have liked to have seen, like, she gets blinded, he guides her back to the TARDIS, and then she says it, and then he's like, give it time to clear. I mean, surely someone in her tribe looked too close to a fire or something at one point. Like, do you know what I mean? But yeah, again, but that's me rooting around for a negative point. Do you know?
Interesting.
So on to our prominent characters, of which we have a plethora. Should we just start with the order that you sent them to me, which is Reuben, Vince, Palmerdale, Scansell, Harker, and Adelaide?
Or like, do we want to like? See, normally
group them together.
Yeah, see, normally what we do is like with prominent characters, like, is we go like by order of like ascendancy of like how good of a prominent or how interesting of a prominent character that they actually are. But maybe we could just kind of push it into lighthouse keepers and survivors.
Yeah, we could do.
Yeah.
So why don't we start with the old man?
Yeah.
Right. So start off with Reuben. What are your thoughts on Reuben?
I've been trying to find a way to say this or to describe it. There's something about the combination of the writing of Reuben's character and Colin's performance. It just makes him an interesting watch. Like he's not like a particularly fucking nice character. Like
he's a bit fucking racist.
He's racist outsiders. He's very suspicious. He's very superstitious. He likes taking the mick out of. But I think it's typical of the old hand taking the mick out of the fucking younger guy. But it's one of those things like there's not anything really standoutish about him, but he's just a very solid performance.
Yeah, I think for me the thing with Reuben is your typical old timer.
Yeah.
Back in my day, we used oil and it was fine. The interesting thing is that a lot of the story, to get the story running, actually hinges on Reuben, and particularly his unwillingness to use the telegraph.
Yeah.
Because when Ben dies, the Doctor's like, "Oh, are you going to telegraph and tell people?" He's like, "No, I'll use semaphore in the morning." And it's like, a lot of the story kind of hinges on that because no one knows what's happening here. There's no one coming out to support them. There's no, like, we're not holding out like, oh, the relief boat will be here in 8 hours. There's none of that. It's very much this old guy didn't know how to use the telegraph because he didn't bother to learn. And so because of him, we get the isolationist feel of this story, which actually makes him all the more interesting in a way. Do you know, and he is very racist. Do you know what I mean? He's also very superstitious. And in fairness, his suspiciousness of the Doctor and Leela isn't unwarranted.
No.
Leela, for all we love her, like, she's a hard fucking person to explain to someone in the 1900s. Do you know what I mean? So I can get him kind of being like, where did you come from? Oh, we came from space. It's like, I beg your pardon, what now? She hasn't really learned that art of cover story quite yet.
Because like this is the thing is like you're not given the years to when this is set, like, all right, but it's like we know it's in the early 1900s, and like there's a lot of stuff kind of going around. Like you're fucking like 50 odd years removed from like the Crimean War, so you had fucking Britain and Russia. Like there's like 20 odd years, I think, or 30 odd years between that and the Franco-Prussian War. So obviously those fucking powers are still kind of going at it. And again, it's like there could be spies. It's like, well, why would anyone want to fucking spy on us? You don't know.
True, but taking control of the lighthouse.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. No, like that's Vince's question. Is like he's not entirely wrong in his suspicions, but it's just because of his crotchety old man nature that it just comes across like I don't like foreigners.
Yeah, to the point where no one realizes that like he's being impersonated by a Reuben.
Yeah.
Until he smiles.
Yeah, in which case it's kind of creepy.
The Reuben smiles and you know you're dead. Which is sad.
Ravishing Reuben. It's interesting to think, right, that a guy that and I said it before at the time, like that for a guy that really didn't think much of the show that he was working on, he again is another person that has consistently done a really good performance on the show because Bruce was a great character in Enemy of the World.
Yep. I think he's someone who's like, he may not think a lot about like the show he's on, but he thinks well of his acting.
Yeah. Yeah. Always give it your best, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. And then we have the young fella.
Aww.
So Vince Hawkins, who's just like, his name is Hawkins. Like, he just like, let's just send him off to Treasure Island.
Yeah. Off to Zanzibar to meet the Zanzibar barbarians.
Exactly. What were your thoughts on Vince?
He really goes through the fucking ringer, like in the space of like 4 or 5 hours. Poor bastard. Like.
Poor bastard. And so much of it was just spent there being like,
yeah, it's like just like and
just trapped up there on his own.
I would be very curious to know that the age of the character versus the age of the actor, because he comes across as like someone that's like what, like 19, 20. I
would place him in his early 20s.
Yeah.
I would say like 22, 23.
Maybe. Because he plays him as such like... but then again, I suppose it's like, with everything that's going on, he is kind of regressing into this like uncertain type thing. Because like, he gets spooked by Reuben's ghost stories to the extent of like, when Ben's body goes missing, it's not like, oh, someone could have fucking stolen the body. It's like, no, he had to have gotten up and he had to be the dead man that's risen because his soul can't rest. Then, like, there's it's stuff with Palmerdale. It's like I don't want to get involved in anything illegal, and he's obviously his head gets turned by money, and then he burns because he doesn't want to get involved in. He doesn't want to be suspected of murdering the guy.
I will say so. John Abbott was born in 1945, which would have him be 32.
All right, okay. So he's not playing a million miles away from it. The character is younger anyway. But I would say of all the deaths that hit this story, His is probably the most emotional death.
It is, and I don't think it's given the response it deserves.
No, it's not, because Skinsale and Leela are the ones that find the body. The Doctor never comments on it, which is unfortunate, because he does. The Doctor is very respectful towards Ben, or towards Vince.
Yeah.
And
I had that in my notes. I'm sad we never got to see the Doctor's response to his death, and even Leela and Skinsale to some extent. It's not. I don't think it got the. I don't think it got the response it deserved. He deserved more.
This kind of like a case of like D84, you know, his death should have gone out with a bigger bang type thing.
Yeah. I was Vince, like, the poor boy doesn't know what to do with a pretty lady. Like, poor thing. But in fairness, he is chivalrous through and through.
Mm-hmm.
And we can see that in the sense, like, you've got Parmadale all bluster and whatever. And he's like, I'm making her a cup of soup. I will deal with you in a minute. And like, he just keeps like, I have to see to the lady first. I have to see to the lady first. He's very chivalrous and not easily pushed about. Do you know, like, Palmerdale is quite a domineering character, not physically, but sort of personality-wise. Mm-hmm. It'd be very easy to have Vince sort of being like, oh, sorry, and like maybe dropping Adelaide's soup on the floor and running off or something. But he doesn't. He stands his ground. He has rules that he lives by, and he's quite rigid to them. I mean, yeah, he takes the money, but like he doesn't know what Palmerdale is up to. He's like, this man has offered me £100, which in today's money, I mean, I don't even know what the conversion would be. But that's probably more than this guy makes in fucking a year. You know what I mean? Like, it's ridiculous. So I did wonder initially, why was he burning the money? Rather than just tossing it over the side or hiding it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, it's probably just because he doesn't want them to think that he was caught up with Palmerdale. Mm-hmm. And yeah, like him not wanting to be a murder suspect, I suppose makes sense. Which is kind of sad though, because I said he has such a good relationship with the Doctor. He's got quite a nice relationship with Leela as well. Mm-hmm. That he doesn't think they'll believe him. That's quite sad.
Also, the extra sadness is that the last person he sees is Reuben.
Yeah.
And he dies thinking Reuben is the one that kills him.
Yeah. Which is horrible.
Yeah.
You know, I think Vince's death is probably the saddest one, and I don't think it gets enough. It doesn't have it doesn't have enough room to breathe.
That is
pardon the pun.
Yeah. That is something that I think is kind of prevalent in this story, and it is like, we'll talk about it in the overall, but I think that's not a unique statement. No.
And maybe that's just the feel that they were going for.
Maybe.
So we can maybe see that when we talk about the other characters. So we had Reuben and Vince, and now we have the survivors of the boat. So we have Palmerdale, Skinsale, Harker, and Adelaide.
Yeah.
So do you want to do best to worst?
I think worst to
worst to best.
Worst to, well, best is subjective.
Worst to Harker.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Worst to Harker. Yeah, because I was going to say like, do we mean like, you know, best character because that's Harker, or do we like most like, you know, engaging character? Might still be Harker.
Good. So who you're leading this? So
okay.
Who's your worst?
My worst is Adelaide, and very very short and sweet. Fuck you. Seriously, just that's all I got to say. Fuck you and fuck off.
So when we first got introduced to Adelaide, I sort of saw her as a bit of a stereotype, and I was like, okay, here's Terence's Pearls of Pauline character coming in. And her response to Leela is very... As people who love the character of Leela, we're obviously like, fuck you, bitch!
Yeah.
But originally I was trying to cut her attitude some slack because of the time, like seeing a woman talking this way, dressing in men's clothes, it is very off form. You know, it is really weird. And so you can sort of say, like, okay, you know, she's reacting the way any woman of her station probably would have in that situation. But my God, she got so annoying that quickly left my mind.
Well, like, okay, commenting about the peculiarity of a woman doing a labourer's task, that's fine. But commenting on her looks, that's just the one word I said I would never say on this show. Ish.
But yeah, but it's... But see, that's why initially I was like, is she just referring to the fact that Leela's wearing men's clothes? Because that's her initial reaction. Is like, huh? What the fuck is she wearing? But yeah, no, like, quickly I got to... No, she's just an annoying pain in the ass.
Yeah, because, like, it was like... because Skin Cells, you know, like, says that he's Leela, he thinks Leela's attractive. And then she's like, well, how long were you in India? Like, the fucking so-called savage, you know, place that we call it.
Oh, yeah, no. By that point, she's an asshole.
Yeah, and I was going, yeah, as I said, she's the...
But like, in the first minute, I was like, okay, you know, reaction of the times. No, by that point, she's a total asshole.
Yeah. Is it the one word I swore never to say on this show? That's what she is.
People slapping her is a bit much. But again, in the context of trying to snap her out of it and get her to focus on what's happening, completely understandable. Do I think she, like, deserved to die? No. Do I think she was a character in way over her head? Yeah. Do I think she was incredibly fucking annoying? Also, yes. Very much so. Did I think she had any redeeming qualities? Not really. Even her one redeeming quality, like, she's quite loyal to Palmerdale, makes her an asshole to Scansell. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, okay, you have no redeeming qualities, my friend. I tried to give you the benefit of the doubt, and then you just kept on being a bitch. So, no.
Because like, it's interesting you say, like, you know, was she in over her head? Like, and usually this type of character reminds me of one individual, Lambert from Alien. Like, someone that's clearly a professional, like, in the sense of, like, she's like been working on the ship long haul and she knows her stuff. But the minute that, you know, it's like this thing popped out of our friend's chest and is now hunting us down, she falls to pieces. And you're like, she's such a detriment. And you're like, for fuck's sake. But everything's understandable. Whereas here it's just like, no, just fuck off.
Well, no, I think in terms of being over her head, I think it is very understandable, Adelaide's position.
Oh no, I know.
You know,
well, like,
she's a secretary who's stranded in this lighthouse, nearly drowned. Stranded in this lighthouse, and people are fucking dying left, right, and centre all around her. That's completely understandable. Her attitude toward Leela, though, and her fucking holier than thou attitude against Kinsale, that is unredeemable. But in terms, like, comparing her to Lambert, the difference is that Lambert is a trained professional,
I suppose,
on her own ship. Whereas Adelaide is in a completely new environment with no control whatsoever. She's still a thundering bitch and whatever, but I think certain parts of her is understandable. Just not forgivable.
Yeah, just like, fuck, I don't like this character. She's not as bad as whatever the douchebag from Revenge of the Cybermen is. Right, so then we have Palmerdale.
Palmerdale, I have the exact same reaction to Palmerdale that you had to Adelaide. He's a pompous, self-entitled asshole, no redeeming characteristics whatsoever, good riddance.
Yeah, all I have is like, the good old Victorian era gentry douchebag. Just like, and the thing is like, see, I'm trying to find like just like kind of equatable characters, like, for kind of more mainstream thing, or even mainstream, like, just more well known. And I feel like that he would have been very reminiscent of Billy Zane's character in Titanic, you know?
Yeah.
But Billy Zane's character is just like a lot, even though he's an asshole, that guy's a lot better. He's a lot more interesting, and he's a lot more of an antagonist than this fucking guy who just like, would you just shut up? Please, just shut the fuck up.
Yeah, because I mean, like, even when Harker goes on, he's like, you know, you're the one who pushed us to leave in the fog. You're the one who said we should go faster than was actually capable of doing. And you used your money and your influence to get everyone around you to do exactly what you wanted. And now you're here and you're just demanding on everybody. But what I love is for all his money and all his perceived power, he can't send a fucking message. He needs Harker, the lower seaman, because he wasn't the captain. He needs Harker. He needs Vince, the young lighthouse keeper who couldn't even imagine making as much money as this man carries around in his wallet. He can't do the things these men can do. Even a simple one like sending a message. Which I just love. I love that juxtaposition of he has to bribe and pay and cajole to do something that to them is super simple. You know, I kind of liked that.
Yeah.
I liked that sort of fuck you to him. Like, do you know what I mean?
So then there's Skinsale.
Skinsale?
I thought he was Skinsdale, and then it was Skinsale, and yeah, I
the Colonel.
Yeah, the mustache. So, you think that he's like going to be like the kind of the noble hero that helps out, but like, but basically he only ever helps out when it suits his own benefit, and as well that. No, I've been wrestling with this since I saw it, and it's like, okay, there's obviously he seems fairly confident initially that whatever he can refute whatever Palmerdale says, because when he gave all that information to Palmerdale ripped up all the fucking blackmail evidence he had against him. But then he wrecks the Telegraph, which is like conceivably like the one way, like, you know, their one and only lifeline out of the place, but he wrecks it for the benefit of his own standing. And then it's like, okay, you think he's going to have his redeeming thing, like where he goes down, like, you know, like, no, Doctor, I'll go down with you, like, to help find the diamonds in Palmerdale's body. And then the Doctor just like throws down the diamonds because like the rest of them are fucking useless, and he then just starts scrambling for them. And so like when the Doctor comes up and he gives like, you know, like dead with honor or whatever it is, I like Tom's version of it because it comes across as like the sarcastic way that it should fucking come across.
I don't know. I think Tom. My thing with Gonzalo is that at first I liked him, then I didn't, then I did again.
Yeah.
He's nowhere near as self-important as Palmerdale. He, you know, he was an officer. He served. You know, he doesn't put massive demands on Vince or on Ruben. He's not making any demands. Do you know? He's like, look, we stranded ashore. Thanks very much for the hospitality. We'll just wait till morning and we'll see it out. When I start to not like him, though, is when we find out more about him and Palmerdale and the fact that Skinsale gave up this financial information to get out of debt, basically, with Palmerdale. And you're like, okay. And you can imagine that originally he had no issue with it because they were going back to London together. Do you know? And Palmerdale would use the information and it would be fine. But now, because they've had so many head-to-heads, and because Palmerdale is so desperate to send this message, Skinsale doesn't know what's in the message. And, you know, because of the back and forth there, like, is Palmerdale going to throw me under the bus? Like, is he going to, like, you know, benefit financially and ruin me at the same time? Which originally Palmerdale wouldn't have done because it didn't serve his purposes. So where I hate him is the fact that he's willing to put everyone in a bad situation to cover his own ass. Do you know? He wrecked their one communication device. Now, I'll be honest, at this point in the story, no one was fucking using it anyway. Do you know? So, be that as it is, like, do you know what I mean? But he does make that bad decision. And so, like, when Adelaide's like, oh, you killed him or whatever, I'm like, she goes on for fucking way too long. But it's understandable, her initial reaction of, yeah, he had a motive. Except he was downstairs. And Vince didn't see him come upstairs, so when the fuck was he meant to have killed him?
Yeah.
Do you know? But then at the end, like when he's like, you really believe that this is a monster, don't you? He does get his fucking ass in gear. Now, yeah, it's for self-preservation, but he gets his ass in gear. Do you know? And yeah, he goes down and he, checks over Palmerdale's body, but like, it's not like he just handed the doctor the biggest diamond.
No.
He handed him all of them.
Yeah.
He's like, here's what you need. And I wouldn't consider, like, is his death him being greedy? Yes. But I would actually more equate it to him being stupid. Do you know? As opposed to running back upstairs and getting the diamonds later. Do you know? He decides to, fuck it, I'll go for them now because they may not be here later or whatever.
I don't think it's I don't think it's one or the other. I think it is like stupidity and greed.
Yeah, but like I don't think that takes away from the fact that he was helping out Leela with the stuff upstairs and like he was getting stuck in. I don't think his greedy moment in death takes away from that. And I think his death, I think the with honor part is, giving him more credit than he's due. He didn't die with honor. He died being stupid. But up until that point, he behaved with, like, in that particular sequence of events, from the moment they found Vince through to the end, he behaved with honor. He was getting stuck in with everybody else. And so I actually don't like the idea of them just laughing after his death. I don't like the idea of, dead with honor as a sort of sarcastic comment. Because, like, hey, the man just fucking died. And yeah, he wasn't a fully altruistic person. But other than that one bad action of wrecking the fucking telegraph, he wasn't an obstruction to anybody. And he got stuck in and helped. Do you know? So I'd kind of challenge you a little bit on the he deserved the sarcastic comment bit.
Well, like,
I don't think he did.
But the thing is, like, then is that, like, okay, he really has no choice but to get stuck in.
He does. He could, be like, I don't believe you. He could continue, choosing not to believe, but instead, he does believe. He doesn't challenge anything, and he doesn't, like, again. It's for me. It's the kind of fact that he went to Palmerdale's body. He didn't have to. The doctor could have gone on his own, but he went. And I don't know. Maybe I have to read the novelization. Maybe it was always intended to be a greedy action. But given the fact that everyone around him is dead, and he still chooses to go down the stairs and face the beast, I mean, he died stupid and greedy, but he went downstairs honorably. Do you know?
Like, see, this is the thing now, is where it's, I think you would be able to tell the full measure of him in a scenario that, like we played the what if game last week. I think this will be the what if game here again, right? Say that all three of them were trying to outrun the route on, okay? And he's in the lead. Does he, like, and it's like that scenario, like, we can't, closing the door, right? Is he the type of person in that scenario that would close the door if he got out through it first, or would he wait for him to come in? Because we've seen before, like, that he would wreck something to preserve his name, essentially. Do we think
But he didn't try to kill anyone. There's a difference between protecting yourself against a slimy prick like Palmerdale. And making a bad choice, like ruining the fucking thing is a bad choice all around. But there's a difference between that and being a selfish prick who leaves everyone else to die. And I don't see him being that second part. He could have very easily told the doctor, Palmerdale had diamonds. I'll stay here and help Leela. Because it'll be easier for one person to get past the route on them too.
No, look,
But he doesn't.
but you do raise a valid point of like over the fact of like no one seemed to be using the telegraph at any given time until like it's pointed out that it's sabotaged. That's like, though that's true, but he does take that faculty away from people. He does take that option
Sure,
away.
yeah, and that's a bad choice.
Yeah.
But that was him protecting his reputation against an asshole.
Yeah. But then again, you could
once he realizes the ramifications of that, though, and once he realizes the situation that they're in, and he sees Adelaide dying, he sees Vince being dead, like, you know, he used to be an officer, you know, and that comes through a little bit. But he used to be a rich officer, so yeah, there's diamonds on the floor.
Yeah,
and that thing's a little bit further down the stairs. And he doesn't understand how it works. Do you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll just I'll try it. I don't know. For me, I think he's nowhere near as bad as Palmerdale. I would almost chalk him up there with Ruben in the sense that Ruben was a suspicious, cantankerous.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair comparison because I still don't like Skinsale for what he did. That's the kind of overriding thing. I like him more than I like the other two, but I still don't like him because of what he did and what he condemned the remaining however many of them.
Yeah, again, like I mean, I sort of chalk it up the fact that like they weren't using it anyway.
Yeah, and
the Doctor never used it.
No, and it's
you know what I mean.
I think it's just,
and the Doctor only commented on it because he noticed the fucking thing was broken. He wasn't the Doctor was never going to use it anyway. Do you know? And again, he doesn't know the full situation when he makes that choice.
Yeah. Dan, I think that's that was the kind of one wrestling thing that was like, was the mitigating factor is that like they don't know that they're being hunted down. However, they are in a sort of emergency situation that would require, like they've just crashed their boat into and like they've lost however many people on it.
Yeah, but like Ruben was always going to be signaling to land. As far as he knows, Ruben is still alive.
Yeah,
he doesn't know Ruben's dead. And Ruben was going to signal land in the morning anyway. So, is he fully redeemable? No. But do I think the dead with honor line should be sarcastic? Also no. I don't think he deserves a sarcastic death. I think that's unfair.
Okay.
But then we have someone who I think we can both agree is a good guy.
Yes.
And that's Harker.
Yes.
I do kind of want to see like the ongoing adventures of Harker and Hawkins.
Yeah. I agree. No, I like he's a good man that's in a bad situation because of the actions of someone else.
And the actions of someone else's really, do you know what I mean? Because you have the actions of Palmerdale and you have the actions of his captain.
Yeah.
Do you know? Like he says himself, like the captain was kind of weak.
Yeah.
Do you know? He was afraid he wouldn't get another ship if he turned down Palmerdale. Or whatever. So yeah, his life is fucked by like all of these people who have power over him. But I do love how he stands up for himself and how he stands up for his crew.
Yeah.
Do you know, like, even though the captain agreed, he sort of lays blame squarely at Palmerdale. It's like you held all of our lives in your hands financially. He was never going to say no to you, like, and you knew it, which is why you demanded it. I love as well that he gets stuck in and he's very no nonsense. He's like, oh, Harker, I need you to do this thing. What? He just gets to it. Do you know what I mean?
I liked it because again, I put that down to the way that the Doctor treated him. Yeah, and I said like it's just something that Tom's Doctor was very good at, you know. But no, Harker is just I need to be of use. Where can I be of use? Here is where I'm useful type thing.
Yeah. I also love how he doesn't, even though he's been through a lot, he doesn't really judge Leela. He kind of questions a little bit, like, you mean keep the boiler pressure high?
Yeah, so
the boy pressure?
I was wondering why you were like, why the hell would he be judging Leela?
Well, no, because everyone else was. You know, in some capacity. But he didn't.
But,
you know?
But I suppose because he's a working class lad, like, so he would have... he would have
Yeah,
the
but I like that. Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
he, even when she's being completely fucking weird,
yeah.
he's just like keep the boiler pressure high. He's like, yeah, that. Like, okay, cool.
And
And you can, I sort of imagine the two of them just shoveling coal
mhm.
for hours and end. Just the two of them together shoveling coal.
And again, comparing like his journeys on the seas to her journey in like space and time and all this type of shit. Again, he thinks he's killed by someone that he knows.
Yeah,
And like that's I think is like the tragedy of stories like these, where there's an imposter or a replicant or a duplicate or whatever. The last people that the victims see are someone they assume is a friend.
yeah. Or in Parma Darren's sense, the giant green blob.
Yeah.
I think Harker's death. I think Harker's death gets reacted to a bit more by the Doctor than pretty much anybody else.
Yeah.
Any of the other characters that died, I think the Doctor reacts more to Harker. I think that's because he put so much on him, and Harker just straight away jumped in, no problem. I kind of would have liked to have seen the Doctor's reaction to Vince in the same way we got to see it in reaction to Harker.
No, definitely. Well, how don't we talk about like the cause of all these deaths?
Yes, the Rutan. What do you think about our glowing green friend?
So, the long fabled enemies of the Sontarans. Not quite what we were expecting, or what I was expecting, but in a good way.
No.
But I liked it because I remember like the very first time I ever saw this, I was like, it's a big fucking jellyfish. But then I was thinking of like that. He said like that he is a scout that has been specifically trained to do this insertion type thing. I was like, I like the fact then because like he's not the representative of the everything that is a Rutan. Like, so the next time if we ever do encounter him, spoiler, we don't. It's like we could see something completely different. Because like every time we see it, like we talk about like the Daleks, there's the Daleks from the logistics division, the Daleks from like the engineering. It's like they're still the fucking crazy murder pepper pot that they all are. They all serve the same basic function, except some of them can't do maths. Same with the Cybermen, some of them have a dome with a brain in it, others just have like are completely cased in metal. There's no difference. Sontarans, as much as I love them, they're essentially just killbots. They're cloned killbots. Whereas this has a lot of potential because if they're specifically trained to do certain things, then there's a variety of obstacles that could face the Doctor and companions further on down the line. So I thought it was actually pretty cool, and I like the fact that much like we saw with Steyer, he's taking his time. He's experimenting. He's sussing them out. So it's not just the beast in the fucking darkness. It's actually an intelligent beast in the darkness that's learning everything it possibly can about them.
Yeah, I'd agree. I don't know what I was because I didn't know until the Doctor literally said, that it's a Rutan.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what it was meant to be. So, I don't know what I was expecting about the Rutans. This wasn't it.
No.
I didn't know we'd ever see them, actually. I couldn't remember when we did trivia around Sontaran if we'd actually discussed it at the time if we were ever going to see a Rutan. So I didn't think we ever did. And somehow I'd imagine them more insect-like.
Like, you would be...
I don't know why I sort of had that feeling of like this clone army versus this sort of hive queen insect-like army. I don't know why I got that idea in my head.
There is an element of a hive mentality because the Rutan keeps referring to it as we.
Yeah, but I don't know why I had more of an insect-like, kind of like from Ender's Game. Like the buggers in Ender's Game. I was kind of imagining something more like that. That being said, though, it is really freaky. Right? It's very similar to what we had with Terror of the Zygons. when you can have someone who, it's not that they're taking over someone's body, it's that they're recreating. It's like they didn't know for like what, an episode more that Ruben was dead.
Yeah, I think it's like the entirety of the third episode. They don't realize that Ruben is dead until the very end.
Yeah. Which is terrifying. And the plan is solid. I love, in a sort of morbid way, the fact that like it stole Ben's body to
learn,
explore it and investigate it and learn. You know, like I said, Exterior was doing experiments, which is also a good thing. But here, it's like with each kill, it learns more. So it killed the first one it encountered. I was like, okay, what the fuck is this? Let's figure this out. And then it killed the next one, and this time was able to impersonate it. And you sort of get the feeling that like it became more and more, it knew more and more about humans with each kill, which is terrifying. And the ruthlessness of it. Particularly, I think the one that struck me the most was actually Adelaide. Because even though she was an absolute thundering a-hole, it just caught her and just thump. She was gone. That was it. Do you know what I mean? There is no defense. It's just boom, gone. Which is terrifying. So, was it the Rutans I was expecting? No, I was expecting something a bit more like the buggers from Enderskin. But certainly interesting. The fact that, you know, like you said, that this one was trained for this mission, and the fact that it didn't care, I say he, but like it didn't care if it died. And it didn't care if everyone on Earth died, because if we can get one attack off this planet, I don't care if this planet and all of us who were on it at that time die a death. If we get one attack off this planet, it's all worth it. And it's like, you son of a bitch.
Because like, and it is a very interesting design choice to go with, because like you take a look at the Sontarans and you're told like they're this huge, massive clone military machine. What the hell could be keeping them in an endless war? Like, what's the opposing force?
I wonder if the massive part of the opposing force here is intelligence.
Yeah,
when your enemy can impersonate you, down to clothing and whatever. Yeah, there are fights on great battlefields. I'm sure there are, right? That's the Sontaran way of life. And maybe there are Rutans who just run in and electrocute the shit out of people. Do you know what I mean? That's fine too. But I sort of imagine the reason it's been going on for so long is subterfuge. Espionage.
Yeah. Like, I think it's a case of numbers versus industry.
Yeah.
Or industriousness, shall we say, more so than industry. Because I can imagine like the Rutans have like huge, like these amazing weapons that they're capable of operating, and they don't need the numbers, because you said like there's also the subterfuge and the espionage element to things. So I find it a small bit disappointing that this is the last time we're ever going to see them for like. I don't think they ever make an appearance. Hopefully they'll come back soon, because I love the Sontarans, but we've actually seen they have a worthwhile enemy that is also a worthwhile enemy within the context of like for the Doctor.
I think it would be a really challenging Doctor Who story. I mean, challenging in a good way, like challenging the Doctor to have the Doctor caught in the middle.
Yeah.
Do you know? And not with there's innocence in the middle and they're fighting both sides. No, he literally is in the middle of it. And does he feel any sympathy? Like, say you have the Rutans are under siege from the Sontarans. Is there any sympathy for the Rutans in that situation? Like, if he was forced to pick a side, could he pick a side between those two? And I think for most fans, it would be like, oh, go with the Rutans, because we haven't seen as much of them. But in this story, they show that they are just as evil and malicious as the Sontarans are.
Yeah.
I think that would make a really interesting story, just to land the Doctor and companion in the middle of it.
No, I completely agree. Completely agree.
And like the only way to get back to the TARDIS or whatever is to either let this attack play out or stop it. And either way would result in thousands dying on one side or the other. I think that would make a really, I would say, challenging story for the Doctor, particularly the modern era Doctor who's been through as much as they have.
Yeah. No, 100% agree.
Cool. So we have come to our final segment. We have our overall thoughts. So here we give our sort of overall thoughts and feelings on the story. We give it a score of 5. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we disagree. And then we have a look and see what that does to our averages overall. So, Paddy, again, you did socials this week. So, over to you. Overall thoughts.
All right. So, you know me very well.
I do.
You know this is the type of story that I live and breathe for.
Yes, I do.
That being said, there's something here that stops it from being the thing that I know and love. And I think it comes squarely down to the body count fodder in this story. Okay? Now, this type of story, there's always going to be body count fodder. Always. Sometimes people aren't like, it's very rare that no one gets out alive, with the exception of, like, obviously the 2 plot armored heroes. Usually you think like there's 1 or 2 that might make it. And in the scenarios where like 1 or 2 do make it, like you're kind of hoping like, oh, which one will be? You know, who are the ones that are going to make it out? And I think basically it's like, with the exception of Harker, the 3 survivors, I don't care about you. Like I really don't. Nothing you're doing is making me want to see you survive this story. All right. And that is the thing which, like, where in these type of stories, I want as many people, or at least I want to be interested in everyone, so that when they die, I feel their death somehow. You know, I want to get some bit of emotion out of their death, other than, and that's what I got here for Adelaide Palmerdale and. Well, Skinsale, I was more like, oh, you fucking idiot. With the other 2, I was just like, oh, Jesus Christ, would you just stop soaking up screen time and just fuck off? So, like, that took me out of the story a small bit, because it's a very atmospheric story. Really, really is. It's like, it is incredibly challenging, and all fucking credit to Terrence and Paddy on this one. It is incredibly hard to pull off a fucking a base under siege murder story in a lighthouse. Like, you know? Yes, there's rooms, but they're all up. It's incredibly fucking difficult to do. And they did it really, really well. They did it fantastically. The Doctor and Leela's dynamic here is great. It's really, really good. There is strong performances here by Ruben, Vince, and even Harker. You know, like, obviously I felt something to his death because it was a really good performance by the actor. So I'm giving it a 4.5 out of 5. This was nearly perfect. Nearly. And like, this was the thing, was like, my annoyance of these characters was so fucking much that it was actually, when I finished watching last night, I was like, I don't even think this cracks a 4. Like, it was at one point it was at one point it was a 3.75, and then I was like going, but I reevaluated as I was doing my character notes today. So like, whenever I finish watching a story, I always give like my immediate thought score. But see, I watch each episode on a day-to-day basis. I don't watch it all in the one go. So sometimes I might lose a bit of stuff. But then when I redo my character notes and when I look over the summary again, it's like, there's an awful lot I'm not giving credit to here. So then that does affect the scores. And then there's other times where it's like, no, I'm giving too much credit to this. Fuck it, the score goes down. Here, thankfully, it's a case where the score went up. So it's a 4.5.
That's not bad. It's not bad at all.
I'm very interested to see your one because like you keep saying like you're finding stuff to nitpick at. It's like that's usually very high.
Yeah. I liked this one. 10 minutes in, I was fully absorbed in what's happening. The setting, the characters, even the horrible characters. You're saying that they sort of pulled you out of it.
Mm-hmm.
For me, they kind of drew me in more.
All right.
Because part of me was, because this like weird, like horrible part of me didn't want them to survive, and I was curious to see how they'd bite it. Like Adelaide's was probably the most shocking because like she's about to run upstairs and she just gets caught. Do you know what I mean? But like, and then like towards the end, I was like, oh my god, is because I'm not familiar with that poem.
Neither am I.
And I was like, is Skinzel going to be the one that survives? And you sort of have this sort of idea in your mind of they destroyed the Rootin' ship, and then the fog clears, the sun rises. You have a concerned ship coming up, and all they see is I keep fucking forgetting his name. All they see is Skinzel, and how does he explain it with the Doctor and Leela running away? You know, and I was like, oh, that would. I'm like, I was kind of curious, like, how would he play it? Would he play it as there's been a disaster? Would he try and blame everybody else? Like, how would he explain it? And so, for him then to die, I'm like, oh, holy shit, this is what we're doing? Okay, cool. They're all gone. Okay, I know the Doctor and Leela get out of it. How did they get out of it? I knew Leela got blinded because I mentioned it in trivia last week. I was like, okay, how is that happening? So for me, I was actually fully absorbed into it the whole time. Even the horrible characters, like, it's like watching Titanic. All of the first class characters, with the exception of like 3 of them, are right fucking assholes. That doesn't mean you want them to go down with the fucking Titanic, though.
No, like you see, that's like that was the thing, but like it's like I suppose
like if everyone was lovely and there was no internal tension to the story, like the tension between Palmerdale and fuck me, why does his name get Skinzel? The blow up between Adelaide and Skinzel. If we didn't have that, I think the story would be very boring. Because you need conflict internally to sort of distract you from the villain, so that when the villain hits, it's driving more down. In my opinion.
No. It's a very valid point because like I think like me, like my favorite movie is The Thing. And the conflict of that is built in by the fact that all these people who know each other really well, none of them know who's being mimicked. So like there's that element of like the paranoia agency. Whereas here they're bringing that outside conflict in before there's even the fucking the creatures hunting them down. But no, like absolutely, and I think it possibly it would have been cool if like the creature kept hopping bodies or kept changing its form, because one thing I thought was kind of cool was that when he takes over Ruben's form, he doesn't take him over from properly. Like his color is very drained, and it's like he's in a suit as opposed to being Ruben. So maybe like the more people he would have, if there was say like a higher body count, the more people the creature killed, the more human-like it actually became.
Yeah,
but
maybe, but like,
yeah,
for me, it's like it all pulled me. Like literally, I was just sat there, stuffing my face with dinner and just watching it, being like, "This is great, fucking loving it." Particularly given my concerns over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Around the fact I didn't like the direction it was going. Like I love Philip Hinchcliffe's era, but towards the end, I'm like, dude, what the? It crossed a line for me personally, and here I'm like, this is the Doctor who I love. This is it. There's a line, I can see it. It's right there, but I'm on this side of it. I loved it. I think Leela was fantastic in this. Some great moments for her. I think the Doctor was really well presented in this. Some great dynamics between the characters. Like I said, when you have a character like Skinzel, where one minute I liked him and then I didn't, he was an asshole, and then I kind of liked him again. I like that. I like that back and forth. So, I was saying, and like you kind of commented on it, like I was looking for something to criticize the Doctor on. I was looking for something to criticize Leela on. Did either of those two things take me out of the story?
No.
No, didn't. I gave it a 5.
All right, cool. But even though we're not aligned on this one, I actually like that you gave this a 5. I like it when you give stories that you haven't seen before in any capacity at all, when you're giving them a 5, because like I don't know, it's weird. It's just because like you're literally going into the unknown now, and the fact that you're ranking stuff as high, that high, it's great, you know.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, I was getting concerned last week.
You did, yeah.
I was like,
you were not a huge fan. You were not like a huge fan. You're not a fan of Talons of Wayne Chang.
I am not.
Elements of it, yes, but the thing itself, no.
But it itself, no. Will I watch it again? Probably not.
Would you?
I'll probably watch Leela's clips. That's about it.
Would you watch Robots of Death again?
I'd be more inclined to, because there's more in Robots of Death I liked.
Yeah.
Than there was in Talons. Like Talons, I just like every single scene was massively fucking racist. Like I can't actually get through this.
Yeah, because I think like the biggest ones of last season you didn't particularly enjoy were Deadly Assassin and Talons.
Talons, yeah. Robots of Death, I liked. I had some criticisms of it, but
yeah. The same with Face of Evil.
Yeah, exactly. But I was getting kind of concerned that, it would be that case of like what we said of like, oh, I love the Doctor and Sarah, and now
Bleh.
I'm not like I haven't seen any of these stories before. Next week's story I saw once, 12 years ago, maybe. It would have been before Elizabeth Sladen passed away.
Yeah,
so.
no, I'm trying to get the time. Yeah, about 12, 11 years ago.
Yeah, it was before Elizabeth Sladen passed away because I'd seen it when I met her. So it was before then, and that was before season 3 of Sarah Jane. So, I don't remember anything of it. And so I was really concerned that like all these stories I hadn't seen, I was like, oh fuck, was there a reason I didn't watch these? Do you know, I didn't want that to be the case. So I'm really glad that like, my love of the Philip Hinchcliffe era kind of petered towards the end. But I'm glad that we have new season, and for me at least, 5 right out of the gate. That's fucking brilliant. And I'm really liking that. I mean, the last season opener that I gave a 5 to was Terror of the Zygons, which a very similar feel here, but much more confined this time around, which is great. So yeah, good opener though in all round though. I mean, you gave it a 4.5, which means that's also a good opener all around.
Also, you're an impartial observer in the Sontaran Rutan War because you also gave Time Warrior a 5.
I did, yes.
Yeah.
I also gave Robot a 5. Yeah. And 3 Doctors a 5. I've given a fair number of season openers a 5. More than I maybe would have thought. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to this season a lot more now than I was. Like last week, I was like, oh shit.
Well, it's a new producer as well. And like, there is a kind of a thing where it's just like that. The new producer wanted to get away from the Hammer Horror Hinchcliffe style era. And like the first story is like a fucking murder thing in a lighthouse.
Yeah. Well, I don't think necessarily was getting away from the Hammer Horror. I think he wanted to get away from the excessiveness
of things, yeah.
Of it. Like again, why all the opium last week? Like, that was so unnecessary. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this season when it comes. And next week we have a story I have seen, but it was 12 years ago, which is The Invisible Enemy.
Yes.
Which is going to introduce probably one of the most Marmite companions in Doctor Who history.
Actually, sorry, no.
Either you love him or you hate him.
I remember it was 11 years ago.
Specifically?
Yes, because I picked up the DVD in Telford Comic Con in 2011.
Ah.
Yeah.
Did you? So it was after.
It was before she died, but after you met her.
Oh, I thought I'd seen it before then.
No, you might have seen Canine and you might have seen Canine and Company.
Maybe I had acquired it.
Yes.
Because they came in a box set. That's why I have it.
Yeah.
Because they came in a box set, the two of them.
Yes, I gave you the box set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Very much.
All right, but anyway, next week, guys.
Thank you for remembering my life.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
Next week, guys, we will be going on to The Invisible Enemy. Bye.
Bye.